Yes, I knew it. I mean, we've got Damien Dark on one hand. Yes, he's calling himself Anders, but he is still Damien Dark. We've got an episode titled The Queen's Gambit, which is the boat, that went down on the first season of Arrow, the one that led to all the events of that series. Always knew The 100 was a DC series connected to the Arrowverse. But seriously though, now that that joke is out of my system, welcome back guys to another one of my The 100 videos and my review of the 7th episode of the 7th and final season of the series, otherwise titled The Queen's Gambit. Alright, so what is the title really about over here? The Queen's Gambit is a chess strategy. The chess strategy is all about taking control of the center. The person who plays the white side of the board is the person who usually gets control of the center because he gets to have the first move in the game. The person playing on the black side of the board, that's the person who's usually in a defensive position like most of the game, if not the entirety of the game. Now, in the Queen's Gambit game, there are a lot of wrong moves that the person playing the black pieces could make, while there are only a few moves that could be considered actually wrong on the white side of things. Some might be inefficient or not as efficient as other moves, but not wrong. That's the problem here. Like the level of being all calculated about your moves is times 10 on the black side of the board. But okay though, I'm not gonna go into a move by move or a game by game explanation of how the Queen's Gambit works. Instead, I'm gonna implement the summary on the events of this episode. First and foremost, let's remember this whole chess game, the Queen's Gambit, that has been kind of foreshadowed on last week's episode. With all the talk about chess, all the talk about playing chess by Sheidheda when he was talking to Nelson, like close to the end of the episode, when he basically got him on his side. But this week as well, we've got another chess game going on. This time there are actually two people playing. One is Russel, or Sheidheda in this case, and the other one is John Murphy. And it is over a little bit of a bet. If you win, I'm gonna tell you what bad thing is gonna happen. A bad thing that's gonna lead to loss of lives. What if I lose? No, I'm not gonna tell you that. I'm just gonna give you a vague statement. Only losers think that way, John. But yeah though, John knows his chess. He's playing the Queen's Gambit. Obviously from the very first two moves you can tell, because that's the nature, the aggressive nature of that kind of game. You're basically playing your center pieces, your center pawns, in order to control the center. The move though that Russel makes right after that moment, after he calls John's playing aggressive, that's pretty much a no-no when it comes to the Queen's Gambit. I mean, you could still recover from that kind of move, but it's not really the best move to make at that point. I think that is also why John was kind of worried at that point. Like if I'm there, if I'm in his place, I'd be worried. This guy knows what he's doing, this guy knows my play, this guy knows all about the Queen's Gambit, why is he making this move? And it's kind of evident later on that Russel had a plan for recovery, had a plan to turn all of this around and against John Murphy. But the truth is though, Sheidheda never wanted to win. He never wanted to win right away at least. Every single time that he made a move that would have him win, that would end this game once and for all, he made sure that he didn't make it. He made sure that he kept John Murphy around. And that was because he still needed the separation. He still needed everyone to be enemies. He still needed to make sure that the unification ceremony prepared and planned for by Amori did fail, and hence Nelson would end up on the other side, and that meant that the final step in his brainwashing of Nelson would work based on what would happen out there. It does get foreshadowed even before John Murphy realizes it. When he tells him, chess is more than a game, John. It is strategy and uncertainty governed by choices. The choice over here was John's to stay, to play this game. The choice was also Indra's to trust John to do this job, while Amori would be out there playing Kaylee Prime, unable to give the faithful the validation that they could only get out of Daniel Prime, aka John Murphy. The chess game, the Queen's Gambit over here, was not the one that John was playing. John was playing it on the chessboard, but on the other hand, Russel, or Sheidheda in this case, was playing it in the center of town, in the center of Sanctum. That's his board. That center is the center that he's trying to take control of, and he's doing that by overwhelming the other side, overwhelming Amori. That's exactly why when the Eligius prisoners led by Nikki attacked the unification ceremony, that's when he allows John Murphy to call for help, because it's all done at that point and his plan has taken effect. But that is just one aspect to the title of the episode. A lot on this episode could be explained by the Queen's Gambit chess opener. The entire situation in Bardo, for example, that could be explained by the Queen's Gambit. Because what happened over there is that the people in the light clothes, the Bardoans, Anders and his people, they have taken pieces away from the people who usually came in dark clothing. They just started pulling knights and pawns and bishops and queens out of that other team. It all started with Gabriel. One minute he's wearing the clothes that he came in with, the next minute he's agreed to help these people, help them harness the other powers, the other abilities of that stone that they don't really know about. This is an interesting part, by the way, that I'm gonna be discussing in a moment because of all the arguments that people kept making. Like, this is all just about time dilations, it can never be time travel. I mean, I never said that the time dilations was time travel, but I'm saying the possibility does exist that this stone, this anomaly, could still do a lot more. The anomaly, though, as indicated on this episode, is just but one aspect of what the stone can do. And what they're trying to do here is unlock those other things that the stone can do. I'm thinking time travel, I'm thinking that war that they have been talking about for episodes. That's all about the war that started all of it. It's all about time travel. It's all about going to the source moment, the very first moment, and then changing everything, or attempting to change everything. But circling back though to the Queen's Gambit, that's exactly what Anders did with everyone and not just Gabriel. I mean, he got everyone on his side, some not so willingly, even though they did seem willing, like Echo for example. I know she's broken, I know she's plotting revenge, but we're gonna get to that later, probably on a later episode. But let us though go quickly through other things on this episode. Number 1, obviously Orlando did indeed hang himself. There was no good reason for the men Anders sent after Clarke to lie to her about a man that she never met, so it makes a lot of sense he was actually dead. There was no chance in hell either that body, that wrapped body at the beginning of the episode, was not that of Orlando's. I don't think Anders would have risked that move, risked Gabriel trying to uncover the face and check who that guy was. But number 2, in the context of the stone being able to do other things that they want to unlock, the mention of Clarke Griffin, once again, that she's the key to everything, I do still think that is all about having shared one mind space with Allie, knowing more about her than anyone else would at this point in time. That would possibly give her, and in turn give them, the capability to win a battle, to save the Earth in the past. Moving on though to number 3, from the very beginning of the episode, and as ruthless as Anders might sound, talking about taking lives like it is just another breath of fresh air for him, the man is just a fanatic, a believer in someone else, and the realization does come full circle by the very end of the episode, when we realize he's not even after it for gaining power for himself. He's just a loyal fanatic to his master, a master who doesn't even want to be called the shepherd, and that master was the big surprise of the episode, Bill Cadogan. I mean, he's still around, he's still alive, he's been in cryosleep, and the funny part is, this week has been all about cryosleep. Actually, the same night has been about cryosleep for both series that I review, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on one hand with the Chronicoms and whatnot, and of course this series on the other hand. But number 4 though, okay, so next week it does seem like that is going to be the prequel episode, the backdoor pilot to the prequel, and I think it's going to be entertaining, I think it's going to be so much fun, and I do want to answer a question here, about how the prequel would work if they were changed the past, because the prequel would still work. If we're going by a timeline theory, these people's pasts are going to be in the future, that timeline, that future is never going to change. They're only going to be creating a branching in the timeline whereby things are going to be different for that new timeline, that new branching, but not the old one. Everything before that moment, that's going to be the same, and everything after that moment, these are going to be 2 different timelines. But number 5, I'm not really certain about the drawings of Madi. At first I thought they were key. But now though, I'm starting to believe that they might just be about a resolution to Madi's arc and her psychological state, carrying over from the events of last season on one hand and furthered by Indra's request on last week's episode on the other hand. Number 6, we're getting to see Bellamy on this episode, in flashbacks nonetheless, but a lot of people have been asking for more Bellamy, and they're getting what they asked for. Not in the perfect way, not in the way they wanted, but in a way. But this though does bring us to number 7 because that flashback does give us a different point of view, a different perspective on Echo's choices of action. Because loyalty is her weakness, that much is mentioned there. The flashback is all about her nearly killing Octavia, betraying Bellamy at Mount Weather, but it is something that also goes into the core of this season. It's all about betraying Orlando this season, it's all about what she did on Skyring, and I don't think that she's free of guilt over that. And I think that this memory is both about remembering Bellamy, thinking about Bellamy, but also remembering that while her loyalty is not necessarily a bad thing, doing the wrong thing because of that loyalty is not really a good thing. That's exactly the theme that we get from a lot of conversations on this episode, including the one between Dioza and Hope before, that fighting challenge. Gotta talk about that in a moment though. But this entire thing with her does bring us to number 8, because that scene in which she remembers, in which she cries over it, all of it does go to show us how much Octavia has grown, how much she's changed over time. Her view on Echo has changed, on everything really. She's gone through her very own years-long redemption arc, from Sanctum to Skyring to Bardo, then to Sanctum again, and finally to Bardo again. But number 9, the conversation between Dioza and Hope on this episode does as well do the same for her. Her redemption arc has come full circle, Dioza's that is. Now that did happen over the course of last season, the time that she spent with Octavia on Sanctum, as well as the time that she spent on Skyring. And at this moment, this new Dioza, this different Dioza is talking about things differently, talking about doing the right thing the wrong way, not equating with actually doing the right thing. But oh though, number 10, there are a lot of mommy-daughter issues in the air on this season. You've got Hope and Dioza on one hand, and you've got Gaia and Indra on the other hand. Now with the former, the issues are on Dioza's side. With the latter, they are on Gaia's. Dioza doesn't want her daughter to know the truth about her. She already does, and that's what hurts her the most. Gaia just doesn't know what she is if not a Flame Keeper. But this also reminds me of, begs the question of, and brings up the elephant in the room. Where in the hell is Gaia, and why are her whereabouts not addressed as of yet, and for 3 episodes now, since we last saw her, since she disappeared through the anomaly. But next up is number 11. Now I do like noticing these little things in the writings of the series. I do like how in one scene Sheidheda is talking to Murphy about Murphy being of the rebellious type, and on the next one we see a rebellious young adult in Hope. But there's more though, because that entire conversation between Dioza and Hope, the fight they had as a part of a bet Dioza made with her that was pretty entertaining all the way through, like 15 years of the kid being raised away from her, Dioza is just trying to make up for all of that in a few minutes, kind of pouring in wisdom over the head of that kid. But it all works though. That finally leads to the breaking point with Hope, finally opening up about her feelings. First time I've seen her cry as an adult, letting her emotions out, all the damage that losing Dioza and Octavia did to her. And with Hope on this end of the story, you could see a certain parallel to the story of Madi, to the damage that Madi has going for her. But we're closing in on the end of this video, so let's talk number 12. A lot of references on this episode to grander history, some we've only heard of and some we've actually seen for ourselves. There is the Freg Draina bit about Emori, twice mentioned on this episode. There is the Lexa uniting the clans, actual unity, not by force and not by blood, as opposed to Sheidheda's method. There's as well the common bit between Sheidheda and Lexa, both of them having been killed by their Flame Keepers, only there's a huge difference there. Titus on one hand wasn't really a good guy for killing Lexa, but Sheidheda, he did deserve to die. But number 13, and I'm not going to spend so much time on this one because I've already mentioned it earlier, Anders didn't really want to kill any of the ladies that he got for prisoners. Echo realizes it. They're being treated well, they've not been executed, and all of it is for one objective. He needs ruthless soldiers, and who better to have for the task than Skyripper, an Asgaden warrior, and a former Navy SEAL / freedom fighter. But second to last though is number 14. The Clarke party does make it to Bardo. This is the end of last week's Clarke arc when they went through the anomaly in Nakara. We could easily guess over here that time in Nakara moves a lot slower than in Bardo. I mean, it has been 3 months here for Gabriel working with the Bardoans, and as of this moment, what we know brings us to the conclusion that Sanctum is the slowest time-wise, followed by Nakara, followed by Bardo, and finally Skyring. But finally though, number 15, Bill Cadogan has made it to a couple of 100 years later, awoken from cryosleep by Anders. Now last week, with the founding in Nakara, I did think that the second dawn bit was kind of confirmed, but I also thought there was this tiny possibility that they were basically throwing us off. This week though, with Bill Cadogan being confirmed as the Shepherd, I do know for a fact that this entire ordeal about the second dawn, it is happening this season. We're gonna get to know more about Bill Cadogan next week. We're gonna get to know more about his history. This might actually be, like I mentioned before, the backdoor pilot to that prequel. However, though, it is important to bear in mind, and this is what I'm thinking over here, that Bill Cadogan might be a little bit of a bad guy, but not essentially a bad guy, like not essentially the ultimate bad guy. The man might have something that might create grounds for unification over here. You know, the bit about the unification with the primes on the other end of the story. This might actually be foreshadowing something. But that said though, I've come to the end of the line with this video, so let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this episode. Let me know what you think of Bill Cadogan's appearance. Let me know if you think he's gonna have a big role to play, like not on the evil side, but on the good side. And let me know if you still really think that Bellamy is dead. Let me know as well if you did like this video by dropping it one of those much appreciated likes, subscribing to this channel, and make sure while you're at it to enable notifications in order to get updates whenever I upload a new video, publish a new community post, or start a new live stream. But until the next time that you tune in for another one of my videos, the 100 or otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in to this review. Stay safe and have a great day.